Hello, Professor Paul, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, can I ask you, how are you doing so far? Okay, yeah. We have finally come to our very last plenary talk of our first day of the symposium. I, Juang Rudianto Putra, will be the session chair for the session. We're going to be conducting the session online and on site. With us is Professor Paul Seedhouse of Newcastle University. He's going to be talking about promoting and analyzing spoken interaction in English classrooms in Thailand. But before that, let me try to briefly introduce him to you all. Professor Paul Seedhouse is Professor of Educational and Applied Linguistics at Newcastle University, UK. He has published 7 books and over 60 articles and book chapters in the area of applied linguistics and language teaching. His monograph, The Interactional Architecture of Language Classroom, won the 2005 Modern Languages Association of America Muhlenberg Prize. He has had 4 grants from British Council for IELTS to study aspects of spoken interactions in the IELTS speaking test, and is due to publish a book, The Discourse of the IELTS Speaking Test, next year. Professor Paul Seedhouse, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, are you ready for the show?
Yep.
All right, so the time is yours, Professor. Thank you so much.
Sawadee krap. ผมดีใจมากที่มีโอกาสได้มาพูดในงานวันนี้แต่ผมขอโทษและรู้สึกเสียใจที่ไม่ได้ไปกระบี่40 ปีที่แล้วผมเคยทำงานที่ประเทศไทยตอนนั้นเป็นอาจารย์สอนภาษาอังกฤษที่วิทยาลัยเทคนิคนครราชสีมาผมมีความสุขมากแต่จำได้ว่าปัญหาใหญ่ของการสอนภาษาอังกฤษคือจะทำยังไงให้นักเรียนพูดภาษาอังกฤษได้และคนไทยหลายคนบอกว่าตอนนี้ก็ยังเป็นปัญหาเหมือนเดิมวันนี้ผมจะบอกวิธีทำให้นักเรียนพูดภาษาอังกฤษและวิธีการวิเคราะห์การพูดภาษาอังกฤษของนักเรียนครับพวกคุณครับ So for those of you who don't speak Thai, I was saying that I taught English in Thailand 40 years ago, and I had a great time. And I noticed the big problem that we had back then was how to get students to speak English in class. So that is what I'm looking at today. How can we get them to speak in the classroom? And then how can we understand their talk? So I hope that you've got a copy of a PowerPoint, but I'm going to show you the PowerPoint now as well. Right, let's try and put the PowerPoint over there. Okay, share that. Screen sharing. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint? Yep, great.
Yes, yes.
Great. Thanks. Okay, thank you. So today then I'm looking at two things: promoting and analysing spoken interaction in English classrooms in Thailand. So we're looking at two things. First of all, how do we get the students speaking English in class? And secondly, how can we analyse how they speak, and how can we learn from what we notice when we're analysing and evaluating the talk. Now, so I'm talking about English classrooms in Thailand, and of course I understand that there's a great variety of English classrooms in Thailand. People are teaching in very different types of situations. So one theme we've got today is classrooms are always similar in some ways, but they're very different in other ways. So we need to try and understand that. And maybe in the question answer session, we can talk about that as well. So the structure of my talk then, first of all, we're looking at the problem we're dealing with, getting students to speak English. And then we look at the structure of the interaction. How is classroom interaction organized? It's organized in a very universal way, so we need to understand how it's organized to understand what it is that we can do there as well. And thirdly, then, we're looking at the data. The data are from Thai classrooms. And thanks very much to Ajahn Sumita for allowing me to use her data from her PhD for that. And then we're discussing how analysing talk helps teachers to improve. So we have a look at the data, we record lessons, we analyse what's happening in the lessons, and then we reflect as well. Reflection is very important so that we can understand what's gone right, what has gone wrong, and how we can improve the classes. And then we finish up with a framework, and the framework is designed to help us, first of all, plan and then deliver lessons in which we're able to get students to talk. We're also able to record the lessons, analyse them, and reflect on our lessons, and then that should lead to improved lessons. Now, a general problem for English teachers in Thailand is how to get their students speaking English in the classroom. Now, first of all, this is not just a problem in Thailand. So when I teach here in Newcastle, we have teachers from all over the world, and I ask them this: is this easy in your country or is it difficult? And they all say, very difficult, very difficult. Okay, so it's a general problem. In my country, where I work in the United Kingdom, it's actually getting more and more difficult to get children, British children, to speak foreign languages in the classroom. I won't go into why it's getting worse, but it is actually becoming more difficult. So I don't want to suggest that this is a problem only in Thailand. It's a very general problem around the world. How do you get students speaking the foreign language in the classroom? And of course, there may be good reasons why students don't want to speak the foreign language. It may be shyness, it may be fear of losing face. And so we need to reflect on the reasons for that and how we can overcome this. Okay, so how are we approaching the problem? Well, it's no surprise, as this is a CARDIT conversation analysis conference. So we're using a conversation analysis framework to approach the problem, and it's a suitable one because we're looking at speaking classes, and conversation analysis helps us to analyze and understand how speaking takes place. And as I said, we're trying to develop a framework that is suitable for Thai classrooms for planning, delivering, analysing, evaluating, and reflecting on our lessons. I'm going to suggest in this talk that it's not enough to do fun activities or games in English speaking lessons. I have seen lots of lessons in which the students they have fun. They're doing lots of fun activities all the time, lots of games, singing and dancing, which is fine. But if that's all you're doing, then the lesson hasn't got any progression to it or structure, and so I think the lesson hasn't got enough benefit. So we're trying to find ways in which we can develop a structure to the lesson and a structure for dealing with the problem. Okay, so we're going to be using conversation analysis, and I know some of you have had an introduction to conversation analysis already today, so you know something about that. So the relevant parts then, turn taking, there's the matter of who speaks. Now in traditional classrooms, turn taking was always a problem because generally the teacher spoke or most of the lesson and the students didn't get a chance to speak. Why is this a problem? Well, in communicative language teaching, the basic idea is that people learn to communicate by communicating themselves. So you need to give students a chance to speak themselves. It can't be the teacher who is talking all of the time if you want the students to learn to speak the foreign language. Secondly, there's the matter of sequence. So what types of turns do people take? For example, question, answer. So we need to understand the sequences. Many traditional lessons, it's simply the teacher asks a question, the students gives an answer. So often that's useful, but we need to think of ways in which we can have other sequences rather than just teacher asks a question and student answers. And then we have the issue of repair, fixing communication problems. That is important because inevitably when you're learning to speak a foreign language, you make quite a few mistakes, and sometimes there are problems in people understanding each other. So repair gets a lot of use. And finally, topic. Topic is a really vital construct in terms of second language learning, as we'll be discovering today. We need to give the students something to talk about that they are interested in. So we need to spend a lot of time thinking about what topics to give the students and then understanding how they develop the topics, and we do that by analysing their talk. So we're going to be looking at lessons in which teachers have selected an engaging topic so that students get the opportunity to speak. Okay, so we're going to be using conversation analysis now to look at how classroom interaction is organised. We're going to be looking at 4 different classroom contexts. These are not all of the contexts that exist, but we're narrowing things down for this particular talk to help us give a structure. So each of these different classroom contexts, they've got a different teaching aim. And because they've got a different teaching aim, they then have a different organisation of the interaction which suits it. So the two things fit together. So we're looking at 4 different organizations of the interaction which go with the 4 different teaching aims. And I'm not suggesting here that any of these contexts are better than the other. You can use them all to get the best results in your speaking lessons. So that's what I'm going to be suggesting today. You put them in order, they will help give the lesson structure and progression. But rather more than that, they should help the students to feel confident in speaking if they've been given the right progression. Sorry, just need to drink some tea as I'm English. Right, so we've got 4 different classroom contexts then, which we're going to be looking at now. And we're going to switch to the handout that I sent you. That's called Promoting and Analysing Spoken Interaction in English Classrooms in Thailand. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and then share the other document. Okay, can you all see the other document now? Yeah, I'll just... Right, so now we're looking at the 4 different classroom contexts, and I'm going to be explaining these to you. So on,
Excuse me, Professor. Could you please make it bigger?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yes, let's have a look. Okay, can you see that okay now?
Yeah, it looks better.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so the first one is the procedural context, and you get this in all lessons. At the start of the lesson, you get it, but you may, if there are a number of different phases to the lesson, you get a procedural context at the start of each one. The teacher explains to the learner what they must do. The teacher's aim in this context is to transmit procedural information to the students about the classroom activities which are going to be accomplished in the lesson. So this is normally a monologue. In other words, it's just the teacher speaking, but learners may ask questions about the procedures. And this is a really important context if you're going to get students talking, because it's got to be really clear to the students what they're supposed to be doing. Right? And sometimes teachers rush this, particularly new inexperienced teachers, and they just shout a few instructions and then expect the students to start talking, and they don't because they're not clear what to do. Okay, so let's just have a look at that. So can you read, just have a read through the extract there.
Yeah, could you please make it bigger again?
Bigger, yeah.
Mm.
Okay, like that? Yeah. Let's look. Yeah. Okay, so what we see at the end here, line 34, the student asks a question to clarify. Teacher, what does contestant mean? And the teacher explains what the two contestants are. Two people who want to be chosen for a date. So the important thing here then is you need to spend plenty of time to explain carefully to learners what exactly you want them to do and repeat your instructions until they understand. And you need to let them ask questions so it's really clear what to do. Now, what I've found in looking at lots of lessons is that inexperienced teachers do procedural context far too fast. They wave their arms around and say, do this, do that. And they just say it once, and then the students are confused and they don't do the speaking well. When I see experienced teachers, they explain very slowly and carefully, and then they repeat their instructions until they're sure that the students understand what they have to do. Right, so that's the first context, procedural context. And then we've got the form and accuracy context, extract 2. So in this focus, presentation and practice are typically involved. The learners learn from the teacher how to manipulate linguistic forms accurately. Personal meanings don't normally enter into the picture. The teacher expects that the students will produce precise linguistic forms which will correspond to the teaching focus which he or she introduces. With this tight pedagogical focus, it's normally essential for the teacher to have tight control of the turn-taking system. Okay, so here then the teacher is saying, hello, everyone, repeat after me, okay. Do you like English? The learners say, do you like English? Teacher says, do you like English? Learners, do you like English? Okay, so we can see here then that the focus is completely on form and accuracy. They've got to get the pronunciation right in this case, and the learners aren't expressing any personal meanings. They're just producing precise linguistic forms which are going to be evaluated by the teacher. And I guess all of you will be familiar with this. It's used in this way all around the world, according to our research. This type of focus on form and accuracy is used everywhere. So in this extract, the aim is for the learners to repeat and echo correct forms of intonation. The teaching focus can be on any aspect of linguistic form, on grammar or vocabulary, pronunciation. So in this case, the topic doesn't apply to interaction in this context because the participants aren't developing a topic in the normal sense. They're practicing linguistic form. Repair is often very important in this context. It can be initiated by the teacher if the linguistic forms and patterns of interaction produced are not exactly identical to those intended by the teacher's teaching focus. So in this context then, you need to introduce the new language, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation that you want them to learn and use. And you've got to practice it until you're sure they can use it correctly. And it's important not to choose too many learning items and evaluate their learning and revise the next lesson. So don't just finish it all in one lesson, but to the beginning of the next lesson, come back to it again. And focus on form and accuracy. Well, lots of people have criticized it, but on the other hand, it's a good way to introduce linguistic forms, particularly if students are at a lower level. And if you're doing a speaking activity and you're wanting them to use new language, then you need to introduce it and get them to practice it so that they feel able to use it in the freer interaction later in the lesson. Don't expect the teacher just to say the word and the student to know how to use it. They're going to have to practice it. And then the third extract then is on meaning and fluency, extract 3. So this is kind of the opposite of form and accuracy, because when the pedagogical focus is on meaning and fluency, then the aim is on maximizing the opportunities for interaction which are presented by the classroom environment and the classroom community itself. So the participants are going to talk about their immediate environment, personal relationships, feelings and meanings, and the activities they're engaged in. And the focus is on the expression of personal meaning rather than linguistic forms, on promoting fluency rather than accuracy. So because the teaching focus has changed, so the organisation of the interaction has got to change as well. And so the learners require interactional space to express personal meanings and develop topics. So the organisation of the interaction has got to become less narrow and rigid. So the teacher may ask questions to the student, or the student might let the students speak to each other in pairs or in groups. In either case, learners are allocated sufficient interactional space to be able to nominate and develop a topic or subtopic. So in meaning and fluency, it makes sense to talk about topic development by students because they've got more freedom to speak and say what they think. And they can also contribute new information. In form and accuracy, students can't contribute new information because it's the teacher who's getting them to focus on linguistic form. So in meaning and fluency, incorrect linguistic forms are frequently ignored unless they lead to a breakdown in communication. Okay, so now we're going to look at the materials which you use. This is from Ajahn Sumita's PhD, and this is then choosing a particular topic, which is dating customs around the world. And then the task here is the students have to discuss with a classmate, how are these dating customs different to those in Thailand? And then if you look at the bottom of the page, there's an information gap there. The students need to work in pairs or in groups and say, what are 3 dating customs that are used in Thailand? When they've done that, then they move on to a whole class discussion, which we're going to see in a moment. Okay, so what do you think about this topic then? So the topic is dating customs in Thailand and around the world. Do you think your students would be interested in this topic? What do you think? Yes or no? Okay, I can't hear anything, but I'm assuming you think that lots of you. Yeah.
Yes, everyone said yes.
Yes, they all said yes.
Everyone
Great.
said
Okay.
yes.
Okay, everyone said yes. Great. Yes, I thought so. Okay, so there's fairly universal interest in that, and they're probably talking about dating in their free time. So why not talk about it in class? Okay. So now we've got an extract. So we're looking here at a discussion, a follow-up class discussion. So here the students have done that, that exercise on dating customs. They've been comparing these dating customs around the world with those in Thailand, and they've identified 3 dating customs in Thailand. And the teachers then getting each group to look at a particular country and then give feedback to the class on the dating customs in a particular country. Each group reports to the class about the dating customs in their selected country, comparing it with Thailand. One of the customs is whether girls pay or boys pay. So the teacher starts off the interaction then, saying, what about if the girls pay? So I'll let you read the extract first of all. Is that big enough for you to read?
Not really.
No, bigger? Like that? That's okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you finished reading that?
Okay.
Okay, go on to the next one. Okay, you finished reading that?
Yes, we can move on to the next page.
Okay, so what we can see in this interaction then, meaning and fluency interaction, the teacher is still taking part in the interaction and has got overall control of the interaction. We can see this because the teacher is allocating turns to learners in lines 43, 47, 56, 62, 67, 70, 73, 75, 91, 96, 100, and 105. Now, most of those sequences are teacher questions and learner answers. So it's not handing over control to the students entirely. However, the learners have still got the freedom here to develop the subtopics as they like. So we see this in line 79 to 84, where F uses the offensive word red or slut. The teacher does not repair any of the minor linguistic errors which learners make. So that is typical of meaning and fluency, that students make linguistic errors, but the teacher doesn't correct them. And the reason for that is if you're going to allow meaning and fluency, then you have to allow students to make mistakes. Well, if you're recording the lesson, which is what we suggest, then you can go back and you can check on the mistakes and then you can correct them at the end of the lesson or in a following lesson. But what we see here is the teacher does repair something, which is use of the offensive word. So it's treating this as if it was ordinary conversation, and that's the kind of thing that a teacher might repair, because classroom standards have got to be maintained, I guess. So the focus is on the expression of personal meaning rather than on the expression of linguistic forms. The focus is on promoting fluency rather than accuracy. Okay, so those two, the second context, we looked at form and accuracy, and the third context, we looked at meaning and fluency, and they're kind of the opposite of each other because they're trying to do different things, so different teaching focus and different organization of the interaction. And clearly it's best to do the form and accuracy first, so the students can learn some language, and then the meaning and fluency after that, so that the students have got some language that they can practice and introduce in the meaning and fluency. Right, so we'll carry on to a task-based context now, which is in extract 4. So I don't know how popular task-based learning is in Thailand. I'm a bit out of touch of that. But the idea in task-based learning and teaching is that the teacher introduces a pedagogical focus by allocating tasks to the students, and the students then usually work in pairs or in groups with each other. So it means the teacher isn't taking part in the interaction themselves. They get a task to do, and the learners must communicate with each other in order to accomplish a task. And the focus is on the accomplishment of the task rather than on the language used. And repair in task-oriented context is focused on the accomplishment of the task. So everything is about doing the task. The teacher isn't taking part, the learners are speaking to each other. So the teacher has to give up rather more control in a task-based context. So in this task then, again, it's about dating. And this time it's a role play. So the learners are not themselves, they're pretending that they're somebody else. And often this can be a good strategy with students who are shy. If they take on somebody else's personality, it may help them to get them speaking. They're not really being themselves. So this is a TV dating game, and in the extracts we see H is the host, whereas B and C are contestants. Contestants are the two people who do the dating on the TV. And B is supposed to ask some of the questions below to C. So here are the materials then, the dating game. So in this case, you're playing the dating game. You have one person who can be a man, in which case they're the bachelor, or a woman, in which case they're the bachelorette. And they choose a date from 3 candidates by asking them interview questions. So in the extract, we see there's one woman and she's going to ask questions to one man, but she actually asks a total of 3 men questions to decide which one she wants to go on a date on. So the candidates can tell the truth or make something up. So maybe they say they're a millionaire or a billionaire, but in fact, they're not, that kind of thing. So choose who the people will be and who the 3 candidates will be. So the students have got to decide between themselves who's taking on the roles, and write questions like the one below. These are the questions that the bachelor or bachelorette can ask to the candidates. and they decide which one they're going to choose. Okay. Actually, I just thought maybe you could try that out in the conference this evening. You can play this type of game and think about what questions you might ask your date with somebody in the conference. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So maybe you can try this out yourselves later. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's the task as work plan. That's what's supposed to happen then. And don't forget that H is the host. So that is the TV host, the person who's supposed to be organizing it. But that's not the teacher. Okay. So the teacher isn't speaking at all in this interaction. So let's see what happens then. Okay. So B then. B is the woman, and she's asking questions to one of the men. So she wants to speak to the next person, and she asks the host, "What's his name?" And then the host says what the name is, and then she says, "I'd like to ask you some question. What kind of presents will you buy to me?" So notice there shouldn't be a to there, but nobody is doing any kind of linguistic correction at all in this task. Now the teacher might be, because the teacher is listening in and maybe noting some linguistic errors to correct at a later point, but there's no correction of linguistic errors going on here. What kind of present? So H, so the host says, yeah, present. And then C says, I think I will buy her ID, a flower. So he's going to buy a flower. And the host wants to know which. And so B, the woman says, what kind of flower? C says, what kind? Some rose I will buy. And the host suggests jasmine as well. So it's rose is going to be used. And B wants to know what color of flower. Okay, so notice here then, B is deciding on what questions she wants to ask herself. So on the script there, on the task as work plan at the beginning, that wasn't there. It was just, what present will you buy me? Okay, so B is producing these questions herself. What color? So C says, red. I love red rose. It's the most beautiful flower for me. So notice there then that C is developing the topic there. C could have just said red, but no, I love red rose. It's the most beautiful flower for me. So some evidence of topic development there. And H then says, how many? So H is developing more questions, again, on her own. How many roses? And then the host repeats that, how many rows? And then the host suggests 99, and C says in Thai 9,900, which I guess is a joke. So everybody laughs. B evaluates then. Nice answer. Okay, so I hope you get an idea of how the task is working then. C is asking questions, and B is answering them, and H is occasionally adding information and making jokes, like in 84, says 99, and then the joke continues 9,900, I guess, and 99. So in this task, then, the teacher does not take part in the interaction or control it once the teacher has explained how the task will work. It is the host, that's not the teacher, the host who has overall control of turn taking, allocating turns and sequence to the participants in line 90, for example. However, what we see in this extract is that the three participants cooperate to develop topics. The task simply states that one person should ask what presents the other person will buy him or her. And C gives a simple answer in line 60, just saying a flower. However, H and B self-nominate in terms of turn and sequence to ask which kind of flower in line 61 and 62, which colour, B says in line 74, and how many, the host asks in line 82. So in this particular task, then the participants feel that they've got some freedom. They're free to develop topics further than is specified on the task card, and they feel free to nominate themselves for turns and sequences, that is, what types of turn to take. So this type of task is usually called a role play and generally works best with more advanced students who are able to cope with the interactional and linguistic demands. So in this extract, the interaction is organized by the learners themselves to a great extent and developed the topic more than expected. But we should consider the teacher's given them task cards explaining the task and introduced the task carefully, which provides a scaffold for the learners. There are a few linguistic errors and there's just occasional use of L1 Thai. The teacher may observe, note any language errors or problems and teach them or correct them in a later lesson. So those are the references there. Particularly, I want to recommend Ajahn Sumita's PhD there, which is available online from the British Library. And that'll tell you everything you need to know about the crucial issue of how do you develop topics in Thai EFL classes. Okay, so I'll stop sharing that one and go back to the PowerPoint now. Okay. Right. Okay, so we've had a look at 4 different classroom contexts. Just to recap then, the procedural context, we saw in extract 1. You've got to have it at the start of the lesson, explain what to do. It's really important to explain carefully to learners exactly what you want them to do and repeat it until you're sure they understand. Right? That's really the key to getting a good learning lesson, speaking lesson going. And you need to let them ask questions about the procedure. So when you've done that, it's a good idea to have a form and accuracy context where you introduce new language you want them to learn and use and get them to practice it until you're sure they can use it correctly. Oops, just need to move this over. So introduce the new language, practice it, don't choose too many learning items, evaluate their learning and revise it the next lesson. Then we saw meaning and fluency. In this one then the teacher leads the interaction but allocates turns to the learners and in this case allows them to develop topics. We don't get that in form and accuracy. And the focus is on expressing personal meanings and fluency. And the teacher generally doesn't correct linguistic errors unless there's a problem in communication. Task-based context, the teacher doesn't take part in the interaction. The learners organize the interaction themselves to complete the task. Teacher may observe, note errors, and teach them in a later lesson. Which context to use? You can use it all in the same course or even in the same lesson. Procedural, explain what to do. Form and accuracy, new language. Meaning and fluency, freer practice. And task-based, the freest practice, not for beginners, because they may not be able to cope with all of that freedom there. So what you need is a careful movement to learn of freedom. They'll have most confidence to speak best if they've got careful movement to getting more freedom of speaking. And what you do depends on the learner level. So beginners, you're going to be doing more form and accuracy, and advanced, more task-based. So key to making speaking lessons succeed then, finding topics which engage students. So dating is one that they're interested in, and I guess you can have a discussion during this conference. Which topics do you find have really engaged students, and which type of students like this type of topic? Give them clear written and spoken instructions. Make sure they all understand exactly what to do before the start. Make sure they can use the necessary language before the task, and progression from controlled to free. So we need a framework for success then. A framework to plan, deliver, record, analyse, evaluate and reflect on our English speaking lessons in order to improve our teaching as well as the students' learning. So we've got this concept of teacher development, which I believe you've got a few sessions on during the conference. So analysing lessons enables teachers to understand and reflect on what is successful and what is unsuccessful in their lessons. And this then helps us make improvements in our own practice and share those. So plan the lesson carefully, suitable materials and tasks, suitable topics, progression from control to free, and then delivering the lessons, careful preparation, providing them with necessary language. In the meaning and fluency and task context, don't repair errors, that'll stop the flow. Note them and teach them or correct them later. Now, it's great to record and analyse lessons. So you can do that using a phone or tablet now. The tablets and phones don't put students off as much as having enormous great cameras like I did when I started. And then it's good to be able to transcribe lessons. You can do that using artificial intelligence now. I think Olcay will be talking to you about the VO app, and that could do a basic automatic transcription for you. And then when you've got your recording and your transcription, you can use CA to analyse lessons in the way that I just showed. Particular focus on topic development if you're looking at speaking lessons. That can tell you a lot. Do students develop the topic as we saw in the task-based interaction, or do they not? So record many lessons, analyse your lessons using CA. Topic development is probably the most important thing in speaking lessons, and Ajahn Sumita's PhD thesis is the best guide to topic development in Thai classrooms. Reflection, very important. Analysing lessons enables teachers to understand, evaluate and reflect on the successful and unsuccessful elements of their lessons and to make improvements in their own practice. It's a good idea to work with another teacher. You record another teacher's lesson, you give each other feedback. So my conclusions then are, it's not enough to do fun activities or games in English speaking lessons. For the best results, we need a framework to plan, deliver, analyse, evaluate and reflect on our lessons. And CA can help us in all these phases and help make lessons coherent. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Paul. Do you have any questions, comments, or feedback from the audience here on site or probably from the participants online? Any questions? Up.
Hi, Paul. This is Numa.
Hi, Numa.
Yeah, hi. Okay, so you're obviously using old data from your 2004 book. Have you done work with more recent data which have caused you to revise any of the, your ideas about how the framework should work and that kind of stuff?
Okay, thanks, Numa. No, that data wasn't from my 2004 book. That's from Sumita's PhD thesis.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, which is dated 2017. Yeah. Yes, regarding have I revised my views? So the basic idea I was trying to get over in my 2004 book is that there's a reflexive or two-way relationship between pedagogy and interaction. So as the teaching focus varies, so the interaction form varies. So I still think that works with all types of classroom interaction. In my 2004 book, I mentioned a number of contexts, but I said specifically that there are many to be discovered, and these were just examples. So it wasn't intended as any kind of coding scheme, simply as examples of manifestations of the interaction between pedagogy and interaction. Certainly procedural context, they have to take place before, you've got to give instructions before anything takes place in terms of interaction.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, hold on.
Hi, I'm Aaron Williams. I'm the Regional English Language Officer at the
Hi.
U.S. Embassy in Bangkok. Thank you very much for your great presentation. In my observation of classes around the world, I'm often struck that the lesson plan ends after the second step that you described. So I see a lot of the first two steps, and very rarely do teachers allow for the third, and even more rarely the fourth step. And I'm wondering if you agree with that, and then if you have any theories as to why that would be. Why do teachers tend to stop after the drilling or the focus on accuracy?
Yes, that's a good point. So basically, I've been interested in collecting data, particularly data from the third and fourth. So I do have evidence that it does exist around the world, but as you say, in some classrooms, it may be that they stick with form and accuracy. I suspect in some cases, it's form and accuracy is traditional, and it's rather easier for teachers to stay in control. And it may also be due to the form of assessment. Okay, what is known as the washback effect, that teachers have to get students through an exam. They get a lot of pressure from the head teacher, from the parents, and from the students themselves in some cases. You've got to get us through the exam. What's the exam testing? It's testing linguistic form and accuracy very often. Okay, and so that might be a possible answer to your observation that often teachers are sticking with procedural and form and accuracy, and they're not spending enough time on the meaning and fluency and task-based contexts.
Okay. Do we still have any more questions? No? Okay, Professor Paul, I'm really shocked that you could speak Thai that well. I've been living in Thailand for almost 7 years, probably, but I could only say susu to motivate my students. Was that because somebody taught you Thai through CA approach or something?
No, when I arrived, it was about 40, maybe 45 years ago. Then I was doing what was called voluntary service overseas. It's like Peace Corps in America. And so we had a 3-month course to learn Thai. And no, I was taught Thai by the silent method. Okay. Now, some of you, like Numa, can probably tell you all about the silent method. Is that right, Numa? Yeah. Okay.
He said sure.
So if you want to know what the silent method is, then ask Numa about that. And then after the teaching, I was put in a small Thai village near Nakhon Pathom. And the family couldn't speak English, so I had to learn to speak Thai quickly if I wanted to eat anything.
Yeah, maybe I should fly to Newcastle to learn Thai from you, yeah, while doing a PhD in CA. All right. Anyway, thank you very much for your very informative, interactive, and also interesting talk, Professor Paul. Let's give a big hand again for our last plenary talk speaker. So, Professor Paul's talk marks the end of our first days of our symposium. Remember, we still have 2 more days to go. We're going to start the session tomorrow at 8:30. On behalf of the committee, I would like to say thank you very much for all of the distinguished guests, esteemed participants, and also all of the staff. I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good rest. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Paul. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.